Most gracious one, an era of loveliness is expected by many of mankind, and this comes about not as the result of chance, but as the result of cosmic law, the radiation of spiritual energies, and the appropriation of those energies in a most gracious manner for the unfolding of the incoming age. Enlightenment and grace then must flow forth, even as a cool stream from a mountain fastness, revivifying and quickening the life patterns of the manifold expressions of the cosmic law, manifesting then in persons of diverse origins and backgrounds who come to the fount of illumination and the temple and altar of Almighty God, that they might be quickened one and all, exalted from whatsoever state they find themselves in, and made a part of the age in its progressive thrust for illumination and for the expression of grace as God intends it to flow forth. Now, precious ones, the mankind of earth have for many a moon, as we might say, proceeded to enter the lists, jostling one another in a manner that has in no way produced perfection upon the planet. And yet the hearts of mankind have cried out, and they have sought God within themselves and within others. And I think also that spiritual power is not on the wane, but I think also that if the tally were now to be made, that you would perceive that the power of virtue is itself in the ascendancy, and the arc of that ascendancy is very great. For the brilliance at the zenith of the heavens foretelleth to mankind that the hand of God, which knocketh at the door of human hearts, is increasing the tempo thereof, because the invocation is coming forth from mankind themselves, and they are seeking in their hunger to have the unfolding power of God's love as an intensifying radiance, bringing forth the balm of comfort to the planet and creating a climate suitable in this age for the manifest expansion of grace and understanding. Now then, let us lay aside as an old and tired garment the vestments of inequity which mankind have worn through the centuries, and let us see and perceive with the vision of the Spirit newness of life, and the garments of the Lord, seamless garments. These cannot be ripped out. These cannot be torn for a trifle. For cosmic worth has made them what they are, an armor and a shield for an age that is not innocent. And yet, precious ones, many of mankind today, although not innocent, are most ignorant. and in their ignorance and banality they do despite to the grace which has created and sustained every benign pattern in their life and world. And they bring their calumny to the feet of others, not knowing that justice herself will move, and the burden shall be upon their own backs, and they shall bear those burdens and responsibilities which they have thought to thrust upon others. And there are none who shall escape the results of karma. Precious ones, it is almost a very queer thing that some among mankind seem possessed with the idea that the cosmic law was made for others and not for themselves. It is as though they thought they possessed some vague sort of immunity, whereby they could walk and continue to walk in the pathway of rudeness, of ignorance, of unkindness, of impurity, of vice, and of shadow. And yet the universe would smile upon them, and God himself would be upon their side. It is true, yea, absolutely true, precious ones, mankind's own personality has been their worst enemy. For they have supposed, and by reason of this false supposition, that they could escape because they felt that they were preferred even of God from the justice of the law. And yet it is not so. You may wonder why I choose to declare it here. I declare it here because there are some few also who will hear our tapes, the recordings which are made of our dictations, and will awake to this realization that when men shed this concept, when they come in humility before the law of God, they learn the justice of walking humbly with God, and the recompense is the cosmic reward of the infinite light that flows forth from the milk of human kindness. When that kindness is tethered to divinity, and so it is, for the source of the milk of human kindness, so called by mankind, is also the divine presence in their world. And I think also then, when this flees from mankind and their conduct reflects that it has flown, then the law itself is at the door, and recompense knocketh. Now some men have a most queer concept concerning the law of karma. They seem to feel as though God himself delights in bringing about justice upon mankind, and yet the ancient recording so clearly sounds even to the present hour, "My soul hath no pleasure in the death of the wicked." I say then to you tonight, to remind all of the great benign power of the law of karma, that God then, conversely, hath great pleasure in the exaltation of the pure. For the word has flown forth, and has flashed as on electric pinions, saying, "The pure in heart shall see God." This word exhorts to purification of the heart, the inward part of mankind, where the voice of the Lord God speaking in the garden in the cool of the day is heard, and en rapport is established once again with the internal communion of the soul. And then the voices, some echoing from a far distance and others nigh at hand, which are not benign, are stilled, because the purity of the voice of God speaketh of justice and mercy and humility. And in his realm of light, God hearkeneth to the voice of his children calling for supplication and mercy and justice. And the Lord God rewardeth. And there floweth forth a command from on high, saying, Come up higher. And this call, heard by mankind, stirreth them to the depths of their being, and the response and establishment of a new era of communication between the individual manifestation and the deity brings about the renaissance of the sun of golden illumination within the force field of that one, and the holy knowledge imparted moment by moment, hour by hour, day after day, and era after era, is the unfoldment of immortality. Now I am aware, precious ones, of the tumult of human reason, the jumble which resembles a cornucopia, but not filled with abundance of grace, but an abundance of confusion, sometimes topples upon mankind because they have fed into the mouth of their own identity a multitude of sins, as it were. And I use this somewhat archaic term, sins, archaic to us who have won our freedom, because I think it will relate to the mores and standards of this age. The fact that unrighteousness done to any part of life must one day be redeemed. Now, some of you are aware that I myself, before I won my ascension, did also do some wrong, even to animal life. And you will recall how that I did justify that, even after my ascension, by assisting a panther to find his freedom. Do you see then with what great care God hath wrought the seemingly tangled threads of human experience, so that individuals sometimes suppose that the Most High God does not see the acts done in secret, must, in due course of time, redeem every thread that they have woven into the body politic of world affairs, and must serve until it is all redeemed, either here below, as unascended ones, or if perchance, through virtue, exalted to the ascended state, then must serve to assist recalcitrant and unascended mankind to find their way home in such measure as shall balance from the screen and record of their life every jot and tittle of the unfulfilled law. And oh, precious ones, how mankind would like to refute the truth of what I have said. How they would like to state that their Redeemer liveth, and that because of his life they vicariously will have the recompense of salvation given unto them. And yet, who is the Redeemer, precious ones? Who is the Redeemer? Who indeed? The Lord God is the Redeemer. And he functions in all to give of his energy to all. And the acts and use of that energy must be accounted for by all, for the law will itself be fulfilled in the bonds of love. Were it not so, the universe would collapse for a lack of law and justice and mercy. And the true act of redemption, which must be practiced by all, is one of cosmic recompense, whereby the soul is acknowledged as the flame of God, burning upon the altar of each heart, where the mighty I Am presence is acknowledged as above all, where the holy Christ self is acknowledged as the mediator between the flame above and the flame below, and the energy, the stream of life that each one has, must be channeled into matrices of virtue until the resurrection principle be established in the force field of each one who recognizes to walk with God is to walk with Christ, and to walk with Christ is to accept the salvation of God and the responsibility of redeeming all energy sent forth to harm. And by the purity of the release of this concept, the world will find its freedom. For those who have accepted the idea of vicarious atonement have also, after their acceptance thereof, proceeded to work all manner of harm in the name of God against one another, and have felt then that by the simple plea, "Forgive me," they would instantaneously find the mercy of God flowing forth to overlook all error and restore them constantly to a state of perfection, moment by moment, so that they could once again go forth and commit iniquities against their brother and against God. And it is not true, neither has it ever been so, but in their lack of true comprehension, men have woven doctrine as skillfully as though they were master weavers, and yet the false threads of mistaken concepts, altered by the infernal powers of shadow, have caused these things to appear right, when the law itself in all of its basic simplicity has been ignored, and the words, "Unless ye be as a little child, ye cannot enter in," have not been understood. And so tonight I come, not in the interest of destroying faith, but in the interest of affirming faith in the justice of Almighty God and the power of his outflowing love, which bringeth to all the rewards for all righteousness done in his name. And it has always been thus. For to him that hath shall more be given, and to him that hath not shall be taken away even that which he hath. For it is opportunity, precious ones, that you have. And my beloved Portia, the goddess of opportunity, does indeed hold forth with me this night in the name of cosmic justice to assert to you all that the opportunity which you have when utilized will bring you more opportunities, and that opportunity which is ignored will result in your loss of those opportunities which you have been given. It cannot be otherwise. And it is by correct understanding, precious ones, that you will expand the grace of God. And when you have this understanding, you will know why it is important and urgent that in these perilous hours you assemble yourselves together faithfully and find no other activity more important than the assembling together to fortify the emerging powers of light upon this planet which seeks to effect divine justice in human affairs. Recognize then that complacency on the part of mankind and non-recognition, whereby they have not recognized the opportunities which life has given them, are the cause of much human misery and suffering. Mankind frequently say, if we do not know, if we are ignorant, does the law not then take into account our ignorance? Precious ones, this is a childlike question, and I am certain that a moment's reflection by most of you will instantaneously reveal to you that the law is flooded with more mercy than mankind could ever assimilate in 10 lifetimes. And yet, it is not always an act of true mercy to let mankind function in the framework of human reason when that reason would not only distort but would destroy the soul. Hence, I think that as you come to love a Master El Morya more, you will recognize that his fervor and his forthright attitudes have been the cause of your salvation to the present hour. And the forthright attitudes of heaven, which have revealed to mankind the truth about themselves, have kept them from slipping into the quicksand of human affairs that would otherwise have brought untold misery to them to be reaped and garnered at moments when they sought with hunger of soul to have comfort and peace. And so tonight, ere I take my leave of you, I would like to remind you of the very marvelous opportunity which the precious ascended ones have given to you all. I would like to remind you that each assembly period, such as this one, is a period of sustenance for your souls, when grace can be expanded, when light can be taken into your body as you take food into your mouth, when that light can be expanded through the cells of your body, when your minds can feel the vivifying, quickening power of the angels and the ascended host, when through the power almost of osmosis you can become godlike through proximity to our love and our radiation. And as you sit together in heavenly places upon the planet, you can learn the power of love firsthand. This opportunity, which the ants may not recognize as they crawl into their holes and perform their insect activities, mankind who are willing to gaze heavenward and call for the fire of Jove to descend, to ask for an action of Prometheus unbound, that they may escape the chains which they themselves have forged, and that they may stand forth in the immaculate robes of righteousness in this day and age, regardless of human opinion concerning themselves. I think then that our bands upon the planet, wherever they exist, will show forth the light of freedom and purity, and that purity will be an ascending spiral regardless of the corkscrew type action of those who would bore down upon mankind with the viciousness of human gossip and idle chatter. Now, precious ones, there are many today in the world who actually seek for the favoritism of mankind, and they hold with the opinions of the human, desiring them with great intensity. And there are some who would almost sell their soul for human opinions. But I hope here tonight that I have stirred you somewhat with a realization that the true secret of freedom lies in your favoritism with God. When you win by obedience to cosmic law, the justice and respect of Almighty God, you have received such a limitless power as no one upon the planet could expect to surpass. Who is like unto the Lord? His hand is the hand of righteousness for all ages. His power echoes with a greater power than the thunder from the mountain down through the corridors of time. His is the eternal power of love. To him belongeth victory, and all identified with him will understand the meaning of the Lord God imputed not sin unto him, for he was a friend of God. Friendship with God, precious ones, is the eternal mystery which each one must seek within themselves and find within themselves. For the key lies not within another, but is within thyself, and the measure of thy attunement with thy God-presence. I am the fullness of the radiance of God and his descending stream of infinite love. I am the radiance of that love in its expanding action as it flows forth to illumine me and all mankind concerning right action. I am the fullness of infinite love as its compassion swells with a tide of power to free me from the chains which I have formerly created. I am the victory of God, overcoming the shadows of the ages and bringing to all the balm of peace. Gracious ones, my love enfolds you all. Gracious ones, my grace descends upon you now. Precious children of the light, as you let the light of God expand through your world, you will bless the planet, and this orb shall glow with freedom's holy light. I thank you and bid you good night. precious ones of the heart of God, with what dignity the immortal soul has passed forth from the realms of life eternal to enter into the world of form and experience, that the challenges flung at the identity of man might materialize in the fullness of God, that man might become a chalice of light, the repository of every good and gracious gift, the benefits of the Father in his magnificent love, which has poured forth its light from the beginning and shines upon the pages of the future with a more brilliant hope than e'er flooded the pages of the past. And so, in the realm and octave of cosmic history, we who ourselves make it are enamored ever with the continuing release of the immortal substance of God's love, the untiring stream of his energy, and the never-failing strength of his arm. Now then, when you are embodied in mortal form below, coping with situations, many of which seem beyond disbelief even to the human, I tell you, precious ones, that you must recognize your connection with your immortal divine self, in order that by sustaining that momentum of cosmic love and devotion, you may draw forth the required energy for each adventure which requires it, that you, precious ones, may emerge victorious in the light, not to stagger either beneath the weight of the cross of human oppression, but if possible to stand stalwart and true, for the Master has spoken, saying, "Greater things than I do shall ye do, because I go unto my Father." Precious ones, the transmutive power of the ascended Master, Saint Germain, and his violet flame is able in this day and age to give you an unparalleled assistance, so that you may calmly repose in the very center of God's holy will and absorb the substance of his will into your form, so that you may indeed, utilizing the momentum of beloved Jesus, do those greater things which the law requires in order to expand the dream of God's perfect love in manifestation here. Now we are well aware, precious ones, of how that the continuing action of mortal concepts does itself cause mankind to come under the power of outer conditions, whereby the soul sometimes seems to retreat from the consciousness of the individual, and a feeling of aloneness seize mankind simply because they have not retained their conscious awareness of their divine presence. Therefore I say to all, when you feel in the least bit alone, remember that your divine presence is nigh at hand, even at the door of your heart, to stimulate in you a remembrance of the days when you, as living flames of sacred fire, did dance within the radiance of God's own altar, the altar of his precious being. O beloved ones, we are so completely aware of how mankind, in all of their outer thought and cogitation, have continually failed to recognize the Eternal One. I would call now to your attention that this is a great loss for them individually per se, for so long as they do not acknowledge the power of God and the presence of God, they have cut themselves off in part from life, for God is life. But the wisdom of man is foolishness with God. For with all their wisdom, which they have achieved and have acquired down through the centuries, they have not yet learned to control their feeling so that they can properly stand up before their fellow men and find the solution to many of the problems which have in every age continued to beset mankind. Now then, precious ones, the continuing release of the immortal substance of God into your worlds assures you, by the power of the cosmic law, in accordance with the grace of the ascended masters, that the release of these messages of light from the higher octaves can be accomplished because of the receptivity of human hearts and because of the magnanimity of the ascended masters, who desire to give you every assistance which the great cosmic law will allow. You do not know, precious ones, in your outer consciousness, the great depth and wisdom of the ascended ones. You need, precious ones, to draw very close and be enfolded in our cloak, the mantle of our light radiance. And therefore I have determined this night that by the power of God and his limitless Christ radiance, I shall enfold you with the great shepherd consciousness of God that will lead you from within to a place where recognition can be paid to the Most High God in such a manner that you shall more closely identify yourself in your own individual state with his radiance and with his grace and being. You know, precious ones, in no way does it lessen the Godhead or take from the Godhead as you draw the energy of his love into the chalice of your being. Have you thought upon that? The limitless love of God is waiting to be released and called into action. Well then, precious ones, why will you not, within the force field of your own consciousness, from within yourselves, call now unto God the Father and ask for a release of that precious energy of his love? Do you think that he will deny his children the boon of this great grace poured out to you right now? I tell you, precious ones, there is no one that shall call that shall not be answered, for I am the release of the Father's infinite love, pouring forth to you through your own holy Christ self, the enfolding mantle of cosmic light substance that shall flood forth through you into the world to bless all mankind and to stir them that they also may rejoice in those things which are the will of God, and shun and eschew those things which are the will of man to do hurt and harm one to another. Now, precious ones, the very state of the law itself, human jurisprudence, does reveal how that mankind have not lived in peace with one another, and therefore, because they have not been peaceable or easy to be entreated, it has been necessary to invoke the action of human law against mankind down through the centuries. Countless codifyings have occurred whereby the law has progressively sought to make itself from day to day a greater administrator of justice to mankind. However, precious ones, be that as it may, still, even to the present day, great injustices are done in the name of justice. And therefore I say to all, stand still and see the salvation of God. Observe the power of light. Recall then how that Joshua did stretch forth his arm and did say unto the sun, Be still. And the Lord God did stay the sun in the heavens, according to the edict of Joshua. Realize then, precious ones, that the power of God to work through a human instrument is almost unlimited, if that instrument will recall how that he is a channel for God's goodness to flow, and ought himself to do no more than to recognize the absolute perfection of God and the definite power of God to make the communicative release which shall flood forth into the hearts of mankind the requirements of that specific hour. O precious ones, as I am coming to you this night with this message, I am aware also of a certain pestilence that seeks to find inroads into a certain colony in Africa. And I call to your attention that some of the children there will suffer a very dire affliction unless a specific call is made and light is released in order to prevent these children from having this untoward condition descend upon them. I think also that your hearts of love will respond then this night to those who may dwell upon another continent than that which is beneath your feet, and you will realize that in this exchange of love and light that you will send out, the healing rays of the cosmic Christ shall flow forth, and you will know also that I, Maitreya, am the shepherd not only of the children of God here in America, but all over the world, wherever the light of God shines, and there is no place where his light does not shine. Behind the iron curtain, behind the bamboo curtain, everywhere the light of God is pouring forth and flooding down upon the hearts of the people, the great love beat of God, saying, "Come unto me, come unto me, come unto me." And yet the people, hearing the call, do not know the meaning thereof in many cases, and they feel the tug upon their heart, and they have been taught that there is no God. They have been taught that there is nothing except the power of the state and the social structure, and they do not know from whence the voice of God speaks, and so the walls of shadow and enclosure have fallen around them like the shades of night, and darkness is very thick, as in the days of the plagues upon Egypt, when the Pharaoh received the full brunt of the invocation of Moses and Aaron. Precious ones, remember then that the power of God is the same today, yesterday, and forever, and that the power of God is that life which beats your heart. Know then that the divine connection between the God within you and the God in all men is one, and therefore as you pour out the limitless radiance of your love, you will expand the power of God throughout the world, and the force fields of mankind will become blessed. I think perhaps as you see how some of them dissipate the spiritual energy which you pour upon them, when that power of spiritual discernment is given to you so that you will recognize then how we feel when we pour out a tremendous radiation like the waves of an ocean to engulf the hearts of men with God's love, and then find that it is simply a temporary feeling which mankind accept for a time and then forget or forsake for other pleasures and thoughts thereafter. Precious ones, when the student body of this activity and the mankind of earth, the planet round, shall recognize the great cosmic release that is taking place at this time, the great cosmic outpouring, and will feel the surge of that cosmic power and light through their flesh form, and will let it transform their thoughts and raise them into the spiritual power of God, you will find a transformation taking place upon the planet. Did you know, precious ones, that a very great being of light stepped right through the wall here while I was speaking to you, and passed right through this atmosphere, and none of you even batted an eye, precious ones, and this is the way you would express it, for you did not seem to realize it. Yet this great one came, and this messenger saw how that the doors that were closed actually were penetrated by the substance, and saw the being step right through, and watched how the walls closed up afterward. Precious ones, you see, all manner of things can happen all around you, and you do not know that they are happening. Precious ones, then, do you not see how that the invisible subtle substance of shadow which mankind spew forth is also most active in the world to create conditions of untoward darkness? Then recognize how that the power of the light is able to take its dominion and to rule supreme forever, everywhere, for the light will take dominion, the light will expand, the light will encompass mankind around, and it shall come to pass that ultimately, and we hope soon, the mankind of earth will awake from the lethargy of the senses and will come to realize in a more complete and holy manner the great gift of life which they hold so cheaply within their hands and hearts. Precious ones, reverence for life, then, ought to be expanded in all hearts, and mankind ought to know the limitless love of God. Let us pour out now, as from a mighty vessel, the waves of love and light back to the very heart of God, which He has this night released to you. Precious ones, as you feel the mighty surge of that great God power, as it begins to well up like a bubbling spring from deep within your hearts, feel how that the angels of the sacred fire are gathering that precious substance that is your life and also the life of God, a joint commingling of immortal substance, and are taking it up before the throne of His grace with a direct power of contact between your life streams and His precious mighty being. You are being of very being. You are bone of very bone. You are substance of very substance. You are children of the light and of the holy table round, the table around which the Lord sits in holy communion in this age, to gather from all nations those who shall be unafraid to embrace the love of the law and the power of the wisdom of God and the power of the strength of His arm, and to stand forth in this day and age and uphold His Spirit and His power and His radiance. Ladies and gentlemen, may I touch you gently with my star? The Christ star of illumined obedience that saith unto all, accept the challenges of the hour, watch with me 1 hour in the perfectionment of man, the manifestation. Watch with me 1 hour. Watch with the Christ. Watch, watch. For behold, I stand at the door and knock. The hour is late, and the midnight hour is at hand. Spiritually speaking, let all on earth hear the voice of God. Let all on earth arise and trim their lamps. For the bridegroom from on high cometh forth and knocketh upon the human heart in a manner not yet appointed. For the day of golden illumination stands waiting revelation, and the souls of men are flooded with the light from the summit, from the hill country, from on high, from the hearts of the ascended masters, and from those who have won their victory. You, precious ones, I say to you all, are winning your victory. Let it then be done God's way. I thank you, and I bid you, in the holy name of God, a radiant and splendid good night in the light. gracious ones, the imprisoned lightning of the immortal splendor of cosmic motherhood is echoing now from the great halls of cosmic light, and the voice of divine authority is heard in the mother of the world in order to consummate an intended period of instruction whereby wisdom teacheth her children, and mankind, coming under the benign influences of motherhood, are exalted into a new age of peace. Now I think that the people of the world will grant to us the great cosmic truth of this, that if it could have been decided in the councils of motherhood as to whether or not the world were to be continuously torn by warfare, that there would have been few, if any, wars. For mankind have themselves, in their desire to exert a show of physical strength, a manifestation of power, often not bridled the aspects of their pride, and have dashed headlong into battle with its attendant destruction to the people of the earth. Time on time, in every age, cities have been laid waste, hopes have been dashed from the precipice of reason, and innocent children have been slain. The hopes of the world have thus been cast down. Now then, in this age of supposed enlightenment, when mankind stand supposedly at the threshold of the great golden age, the machinations of human warfare and viciousness once again are manifest upon the scene of the world to cloud the brain of mankind from the great cosmic vision of peace, and bring about, if possible, accordance to the fiats of the powers of darkness, the gnashing of teeth that is always the part of the battle cry. It is my hope now then that the wondrous angels of light, invoked by the power of the goddess of light, shall cause a splendid appearing in the consciousness of mankind, whereby wisdom and her precepts are heeded, and the vicious tides that have lashed mankind in its senseless diversions throughout the periods of history shall be terminated in a great era of understanding, whereby the hearts of mankind can be knit together by the gentle impulses of the cosmic mother as the shuttle of her attention descends to the planetary body to infuse mankind with awareness of the more gentle crafts of heaven and the power of the angels. Now I say to the earth, awake and hear the voice of cosmic reason. Hear the splendid teachings of the hand of God manifest in the mother aspect, and see that thou dost establish now the protective measures which the hour requires for the nurturing of wisdom's children and the exaltation of their consciousness into a realm of tranquility and peace, whereby the hand of science and invention can bring to mankind the necessary required hours of leisure, that they may contemplate their souls and may also find how they may take greater steps toward cosmic peace upon earth and in the hearts of mankind. I am well aware of how that poverty has taken her toll. I am aware of the pitiful clutchings of the poor who have taken hold of my garments and given me that impulsive tug which requires my attention and the attention of the Karmic Board. The Karmic Board has been stirred again and again by the restless energies of the hungry and the tired and the poor and those confused masses who yearn to have the infinite grace of God bestowed upon them in a more tangible way, but who are hindered by many conditions, some outward and some inward, from realizing the great cosmic dream of God, whereby some similitude of heaven could be externalized here. The gracious cosmic instruction which your precious Saint Germain has vouchsafed to you again and again stands blazoned upon the records of Akasha. The impulses of the angelic host and the magnificent outpicturings of elemental life remain season after season before the vision of mankind from the outer. But I call unto all of you to gaze now with inner spiritual eyes upon the mighty impulses of light's radiance from within, the power of light behind the outer manifestation, the power of grace behind the uplifted heart, the power of God's love behind the vision of beauty which causes the heart to leap with joy. I call to you to recognize that just as there is a vicious force behind the impulses of war, just as there is a vicious force behind the divisive actions of mankind which seek to sunder heart from heart, so there is a benign aspect behind all that impulses and moves in a joyous way. I say to you all then, you are the offspring of God. Reverence this great cosmic fact and make it a fiat of truth, whereby thy path does not become a shadowed enclosure of briars and thorns, but one where the birds burst forth in singing, and the angelic host peer from behind each bush to smile upon thee with the countenance of grace. Oh, I call to your attention, precious ones, the numerous occasions when the angelic ones have, shall I say, in your own vernacular that you may appreciate still more, peekaboo with you, blessed ones. The precious elementals have peered with hope from behind the leaves of the trees and the bushes. They have smiled in the cloud formations in the sky. They have descended in the perfume that infiltrates the bowers. They have brought innumerable occasions of wonder to your inner gaze, and yet you have been diverted and have not returned their loving glances. You have paid no recompense to their graces, and they have continued to serve the planetary body. Now I say, in the name of justice, in the name of reason, why should this continue so to be? And yet it must. It must, by the great cosmic law that binds these blessed elemental ones to fulfill a ceaseless momentum of service to the planetary body, whereby springtime and summer and fall and winter, the great journey of the seasons is made. and the zones of the earth do manifest the light of God in various modes and dress. I maintain silence for a moment. The heartbeat of a cosmic mother is still. And in this stillness, I wrap nature in our torch. A gratitude which mankind has not expressed shall be expressed by me this day. And if ye will not render a cosmic service, then I shall raise my torch to render it in your name and in the name of Almighty God. And I shall also say, O mothers of the world, where tribulation and care has closed thy eyes of spiritual compassion, I shall stand in thy name, and I shall keep a vigil for you until you can maintain your own vigil. I would descend from the lofty pedestal which even Almighty God has given unto me, to be his handmaiden among men, and to walk among you, and to let you feel the grace which I emanate in the holy cause of liberty. Won't you please be seated? Now then, as we outbreathe a new impetus of light for Saint Germain in this manifestation, I suspect that countless hearts will be stirred. I feel that the power of my release this day shall stir upon the planetary body the lethargy of many. I propose that those who shall hear the recordings made of my plea shall also be stirred. I propose that when the printed word has gone forth, many shall be stirred. But I am certain that more shall be stirred who hear and read than those who hear in the inner realms, for the ears of men have waxed dull, and their hearts are in tune with clay. I say then to all, disseminate our word. Send forth to the marts of mankind the plea for an end to struggle and strife, resulting from an action of mankind's ego in its desire for competition. Mankind suppose that they have a stiff spine, whereas the only part that is stiff is their neck, and they have become stiff-necked people, pursuing a path that leadeth to destruction, when the gentle calls of heaven could give them a spiritual spine, an arrow of righteousness aimed heavenward to emblazon the hopes of God upon the heavens themselves. For the hand of God, the great archer, has bent the bow with gentleness, and yet the power of his ray holds it back. A tremendous power is garnered in the Lord's energy. His right arm hath he drawn back, and the arrow shall fly, and there shall be no slack in the taut bow that shall not be taken up. Hence the Lord shall valiantly release his energy, and all of the powers of heaven shall be shaken, and mankind shall know that I am the Lord thy God. tremendous actions are occurring at inner levels for the freedom of the earth. And in every age, while these actions occur, the unsuspecting continue, blessed ones, to be ignorant of the contemplated cosmic action. I call to your attention that they are also ignorant of the arrow that flieth by night, and of the pestilence that wasteth at noontide. They do not know how that instruments of destruction are also readying for the destruction of mankind, just as the powers of heaven are readying for the construction of new spirals of mankind's cosmic achievement. Do you not see, then, in the handwriting of great truth upon the wall of life, how that the Armageddon forces are being marshaled? On the left hand, the shadowed enclosures which men have built over the centuries, and on the right hand, the strong arm of God and His law. And His law is merciful, and His law is gracious, and His power of instruction will cause men to leap and to run and to rejoice. But only in the tomes of the law in action, only in the manifestation of victory, not in defeat. Precious ones, the sounding forth of my call this day has produced a greater action than I even realized when I came. And therefore, I will not be required to release as much energy as I had thought to do. This is a sign of encouragement, but it is not a sign for lethargy on the part of the students. It simply means that the precious elementals, builders of form and angelic hosts, and the holy Christ selves of your own blessed selves here have taken up a great dedication, a great feeling of cosmic desire, and on the high rise and wave of that desire, the powers of cosmic response have been stirred. The great cosmic light then itself rushes forth to do battle for mankind. And I say, if by reason of the energies of the few of mankind such an action shall come about, what do you suppose, precious ones, would happen if the many should take up the energies we are releasing and decide to straightly walk upon this planet through the straight gate and the narrow way that leads to invincible cosmic Christ freedom? I leave the answer up to your own speculation. For if I were to spell it out for you, precious ones, it would not have any more power to inspire you than that self-realized concept which represents the highest achievement of which you are presently capable. Do you see? Therefore, gracious ones, the expansion which the great law requires is not in the world alone as a planet, but is in the hearts and the minds and the consciousness of the people. You must expand the cup then of your own consciousness and recognize divine capabilities, and then, and only then, can we perform the perfect work which we would do. Only then can Saint Germain and your beloved Moria fully utilize the body which we are now currently trying to weld together and establish. You lament that more among mankind do not hear our words. You lament that more among mankind do not pay allegiance to the ascended ones. Well, let me tell you, precious ones, that in their present state, if they were to be admitted here, where we speak, the very thoughts which they would think would completely forestall our coming forth as we now do. For we would not violate the free will of mankind. We would not step forth as we do now, when individuals would say, we do not accept, we do not believe. Who is the goddess of liberty? Who is Saint Germain? Who indeed, precious ones, are you? Who indeed is mankind but a manifestation of God? Yet this they have not known, and have scarce suspected. Mankind have felt down through the centuries, by reason of religious convictions, that they were the vilest of sinners. They have misinterpreted the Scriptures through the ages, and have lived in a state and consciousness of inequity and disease and hatred and human viciousness. I admit, and all will admit, and you will admit, that this has not established happiness, nor could it ever do so. For happiness can only be established by the righteousness of the law in action, the law of love, the law itself that is God. For God is both law and love, and the perfect balance of justice and mercy, and all of his attributes are thine own. But the great cosmic law requires that thou, O mankind, shall accept and establish, both now and forever, that which is the great gift of heaven to you. I tell you, precious ones, that if this moment a stranger were to come through the door yonder, and he were to be dressed in exotic attire, perhaps a turban from the Far East, and robes strange to your eyes, bearing in his hand a little parcel, and then would begin to unwrap this parcel and say unto you that here within is a precious formula which you can mix and put into a glass of water, which when you have drunk, you will have discovered the fountain of youth. I tell you, precious ones, that a great struggle would occur to secure some of this precious herb, and yet mankind would find that unless they were able to accept mercy and truth and the ingredients of life, that the greatest wrong would be done to the planet itself if mankind were given permanent life without permanent truth. For life as it is now currently lived upon earth is only happy in heaven because it is broken, and freedom is brought to mankind through a release from disease, from bondage, from misery, and from human creation. Now then, the last enemy that shall be destroyed is death. For when mankind exhibit the great justice of the law, then the liberty of God will be given to them to claim as their own forever, and life will be manifest without end. The victory of the ascension is given to mankind because they have offered their all to God upon the altar of their being, and because the great cosmic flame of God's love and the flame of God's law is admixtured within them in equal proportions, they are able to rise on the pulsations of that flame, you see, for they have no outer desire, desiring not to go out in a human way and enthrall mankind with their appearance, saying, "Gaze upon me, for I am fair." They rather gaze upon their own presence and behold the fairness of that presence in the mirror of their being. The great reflected image, then, is that whose tracings they outline in their modes of conduct, so that they may from day to day be changed in appearance, even as by the Spirit of the Lord, until they see clearly the radiance of His presence manifest in their world. Then I think I can claim them as I have claimed Saint Germain, as a cosmic mother. Then I think I can wrap them in my flame. Then I think I can say, help me hold high my torch in God's name. For then I know that life will pulsate with the flame of victory, and all will know that I am your cosmic mother, that I hold in my hand the energies and gifts to bestow, the secrets to know, and the justice to give, that will help you to live even as I am in the paradise of God. From His light I came, and to His light I return. And as I go, I wish to stimulate in each of you your spiritual eye, that you may feel the pulsations of the fire of Jove, so called in mythology from the sky, the power of love that pulsates as the single-eye vision. Oh, catch its gleams like the Holy Grail of old, and know that it contains the elixir whose wonders are untold. The splendor of the ages is herein revealed and not concealed. For God is in thy frame, and by the power of His flame you shall rise in ascension's name. Your beloved Jesus to claim, your beloved Saint Germain to adore. The power of God's light forevermore will be your own, and you will be my son, my daughter, of love not yet known, but hoped for. Unafraid I come, and in the power of love I move, and I give to all the great radiance of my love. Who will hear our voice and receive our radiance? Who will listen when we speak and be stirred more than an hour? Who will feel the great surge of our power and hold that inviolate throughout life until heaven be gained? Herein is no strain, but only the gentle relaxation of falling rain, the heavenly rain descending upon the parched ground of mankind's lack, and bringing the flowers of heaven into manifestation. They spring up, they rise, they pulsate with resurrection's power, and the feet of the Christ are pressed into the soft, moist earth. Mankind, walking in His name, in His image, in His flame, are comforted by God's name, which I am manifest. I thank you, gentle one, bid you a holy good afternoon.
ascension in the light. I am Gabriel, who stand in the presence of God, to announce to every life stream upon the planet Earth the great God dream and design whereby mankind are raised into such concepts of purity and love as originally descended from the heart of God. These dreams of God, echoing down the corridors of the ages, are able to aspire in each age the mankind of earth to have new and fresh dimensions of spiritual power, that they may be able to catch and sustain the vision of God each hour, and hold thereby a great reservoir of spiritual power within the force field of their own soul consciousness. And as I come to you tonight to speak to you of the consciousness of the soul, it is to tell you that the fabric of your soul is the vestment of Almighty God, which enables you to attend the marriage feast of the Lamb of God, who taketh away all the stains of the world, and wipeth out every spot, until the body of God upon the planet holds the inviolate radiance of his rainbow rays as a part of the fabric of their being. Precious ones, long ago in the land of Egypt, the son who was sold into bondage did find that the mankind of earth associated with him as brethren did call him an idle dreamer. And I reference here beloved Joseph. Joseph did wear a coat multicolored in hue, a coat of many colors, symbolizing the radiance of the rainbow rays. Manifesting in the raiment of beloved Jesus was the seamless garment of the Christ, typifying to all life that the coat of many colors, the rainbow rays, did blend into the pure white light, and calling to the attention of mankind in the token symbol of the seamless garment that in the eyes of God there exists no division in so far as opportunity for the aspiring soul is concerned. And therefore, when I stood in the presence of Mary and spake unto her these words of the Annunciation, I am Gabriel, who stand in the presence of God, it was to bring to her mind the ancient covenants vesting the radiant soul fabric of the going forth of the divine ideation with the consciousness immaculate, the divine image of perfection, which would evoke on the instant memories of the halls of light in the soul of the enthroned yet dominated human focus, where the soul of God was manifesting in a vestment of flesh, yet retaining within the great corridors of memory some knowledge of the halls of spiritual victory and perfection once known by the descending one, which the great law requires all to revive and to revivify. For to revivify is to bring again to life, to resurrect all those conditions which supernal radiance existed in the soul of man in the beginning, when man knew his own deity face to face. And so my salutation to Mary brought forth and evoked the doctrine and teaching which mankind have expressed such appreciation for, known as the Magnificat. Mankind have expressed approval of her radiant words, her expressions which came forth from her own soul consciousness in memory of the power of God that went forth in order to exalt those of low degree and to cast down the mighty from their seats. I call to the attention of mankind that many years ago there was a motion picture sent forth into the world of form by the power and direction of the Brotherhood called Gabriel over the White House. I call to your attention now, blessed ones, that this drama did unfold before the waiting consciousness of mankind, a very strange and ethereal picture, whereby I was reported to have entered into the body and being of the President of the United States, and have taken over the direction of this great nation as an archangel of light to direct the American people in accordance with the divine edict and plan. While this was no contemplated or projected plan from the divine level, it was a beautiful picture and thought of divine direction, whereby contact between the earthly octaves and the heavenly octaves could become an intensified cable of communication far superior to that which mankind have presently evoked and called and labeled the hotline between Washington and Moscow. I call to your attention that what is needed is greater soul communion by the mankind of earth with the radiance of their own soul first, and the radiance of their own mighty I Am presence as it communes with their soul consciousness and gives to them the power to expand their threefold flame of love, wisdom, and power, and take direction from their own God self, so that they can, as we do on wings of light, have the sustaining power of God manifest on the instant whenever it is called into action. Precious ones, I remind you that in the span of earthly existence there are countless times when individuals feel a great need to evoke from the Godhead a sustaining assistance for their life stream or the life stream of another person. I remind you that it is a great boon when an individual is able on the instant to establish their contact with God and draw forth from the universal the necessary requirements of each hour. I call to your attention now that in order so to do, it is usually required that the garments of the soul shall use the electrical spiritual force that came forth with the individual at the beginning and is wedded to the consciousness of the individual, so as to draw forth from God the necessary energy that will shatter the wrong matrices made by mankind and give them that unparalleled assistance which only heaven can give. I remind you then that as you pray and invoke from the Godhead assistance at each hour, whether it is specifically required or needed by you at that moment or not, you are building up a great spiritual reservoir of power and establishing contact with your own mighty God presence, so that when the hour of your trial or testing might come, you would be able on the instant to have that assistance which the moment might require. I remind you of beloved Jesus' statement, "Wist ye not that I could presently call unto my Father and ask him for assistance, and presently he would send me more than 12 legions of angels"? Do you recognize, precious ones, that the power of God which came forth unto Christ and did give him the power to testify concerning the great law of God, the law of eternal truth before mankind, was the result not of mere speculation, but the result of communion and devotion, which was maintained and sustained hour after hour through the centuries and the halls of his existence, whereby his eternal connection was on the instant established and manifested the requirements of each hour, whether in healing, teaching, directing, precipitating, or leading mankind toward the great goals of life. Now, as I am come to you to give you the immortal assistance which the great law requires, I remind you that God has already established a focus of himself in the tabernacle of your being, that you do not need to establish the original focus, but you already have it. And the only requirement of the great law, precious ones, is that you expand it, utilizing the mighty talents of life already in your hands to expand and invoke by devotion and consecration all of the energy which the moment may require. Turn your attention now then unto God, recognizing his presence in the universe. Feel and sense his great love for you, for his love for you is like unto the love which God feels for all of his creation. He has not at any time deleted any of his creation from the universe or caused them to become non-existent. For God in his great love has poured forth to all from the very beginning the full sustaining radiance of his own attention. And now the requirements of the great law are for mankind to return the attention which God has given unto them, so that he may bestow upon them a greater measure of his gifts and graces. The requirements of the divine law are not egotistical, as mankind's are. They do not require adoration and praise in order to nourish the soul of God, but in order to nourish the soul of man. I remind you then that you have a great measure of cosmic assistance poured out to you at all times, whether you are aware of it or not, and this assistance cannot be broken except by your own conscious desire so to do. Now, I do not think for one moment that you desire to separate yourself from your great divine presence, but I remind you that when you are engaged in any form of activity which separates you from the consciousness of God, that there is a temporary break in your outer consciousness of the great awareness which you ought to always hold there. It is up to you, precious ones, to decide whether or not you can afford these breaks in your consciousness. It is up to you, not to heaven, to decide whether or not you wish to always maintain the dignity of the communion between yourself and your immortal God-self. Precious ones, I have often heard and read the recorded records taken by listening angels and others of the ascended realm who have examined some of the modes of mankind, and oh so frequently we find that mankind say, I desire to have a life of my own. This is as though they would set up a kingdom somewhere in the universe apart from the life that is God, from the life that beats their heart, and establish for themselves a realm where no other individual or being could ever commune with them. I am certain, knowing the great cosmic law, that if they were to be given this gift for which they sometimes seem to cry out, they would speedily call upon the great law of forgiveness, and desire to once again be returned to the mainstream of the divine thought, where they could recognize how that God himself has said, "It is not good for man to be alone. Hence I will make a helpmeet for him." And thus the twin ray radiance went forth, and God did divide the mighty white fire body into the twin rays, in order that all parts of life always should be all one, and yet not alone. I remind you then that the divine plan is scientific and gracious, that all of the archangels and heavenly beings, in their great immaculate concepts of God's love, are eternally grateful for the radiance and the feeling of communion which he imparts to all those in heaven's realms, as he attempts to impart to all below in the realms which we may term the formative realms, where mankind are in a state of becoming that which God intends to bestow upon them. In the great schoolrooms of earth, then, mankind are all given some form of instruction. They have either a guru who is very harsh, such as they who exist in the outer world and are appointed by the karmic lords in accordance with the decree of each individual life stream, or they are some spiritual teacher, or perhaps an individual can come to a state where the communion of God with his own soul is sufficient for that one, for he has mastered all the requirements of the law concerning his connection with other parts of life, and can become a teacher of men and angels himself. However, there are few that are so qualified, and I say unto the mankind of earth, in the main, the mankind of earth ought to look to do the will of God, and to respect the divine mysteries, and to recognize that just as all is not gold that glitters, so all that seems to be nuggets and kernels of truth is not truth indeed, but is error. For mankind have, by familiarity and rote, achieved the questionable distinction of having accepted certain ideas which are in no way related to the truth of their being, and yet because they are old and familiar, they presume that they are accurate. They were handed down by rote and tradition, from father to son, from mother to daughter, and from seeming time immemorial, from one race and one time unto another passing age. Yet I say to you all, the great eternal truths are written within the heart of man. They are a part of the fabric of his soul, and they cannot be broken by any requirements of mankind, for the great law itself is fixed, immovable, and is an eternal blessing to all who recognize its immobility and yet its great saturation with the power of mercy and grace. For mankind of earth, you little know how that the elements of God, called mercy and grace, do penetrate into all aspects of the law, and sometimes certain conditions upon this planet seem to you to be lacking in mercy or lacking in grace, and you do not take into account just what is acting there. You may have, blessed ones, the concept that it is the power of God acting, when in reality it is a law set into action by the individual himself, which has manifested a returning current of his own karma. Nations, individuals, societies, and many segments of society itself and of the human race are subject to varying aspects of the great law of karma, and therefore it is extremely difficult for unascended beings to be able to assess just what is acting in the life of another. The main advice that we would have to give to you this night is to pay allegiance to the great resurgent concept of God, the immaculate concept, and hold this concept inviolate in your own soul. Recognize this is the thought of God, and is not qualified by your own thought, precious ones, but is always qualified by your mighty God presence. Therefore, when you stand as I do in the presence of God, you stand upon the rock of divine truth, and you are fixed and immovable in the great law of your being. You need not then speak unto others, saying, "Show us the way," for you can, in the words of the immortal Christ, brought forth through Mary, say, "I am the truth. I am the light. I am the way." And so will it be. For when you are anchored upon the bedrock of your divinity and sustain that radiance, there is no question as to what direction you will take. It will be a raising action whereby the skeins of your mind, those delicate and specific tendrils of the divine radiance that as gentle cups hold the power of memory, will themselves be lifted up as beautiful white flowers and trail their radiance in the dust of your being, touching you with chords of divine harmony that will cause the power of God to actually make a sound and tone within the temple of your own being, your physical form then feeling a great sustaining radiance of God's thought, the power which by the ancients was known as the power of Om, will become a radiance within yourself, a celestial tone that will cause you to feel at all hours your contact and connection with this infinite power of divinity that speaks from interstellar space and speaks to all the universe, saying, "Be still and know that I am God. Be still and know that I am God. Be still and know that I am God." Thank you, and good evening, and may the powers of the angels of the Immaculate Concept seal the Christ image within thy being unto eternity's breaking morn. I am Gabriel, who stand in the presence of God.